The railroad was pretty much the impetus, the driver of American industrialization in the beginning, right? But think about it. In 1860, how many transcontinental railroads are there? None. No railroad goes from the East Coast to the West Coast and vice versa, right? So to get across the nation, it takes a very long time, right? Stagecoaches, horseback, or even just walking. Or you have to do a pretty long and arduous journey by boat, going down and up the North and South American coasts, right? Railroads, however, again, cut through right through the area, right? And by the time we get to this period, the Gilded Age, we're going to have 4 transcontinental railroads, making this national market possible. It's also important because of the fact that you're going to stimulate the economy just by building the things. Think about it. Think about what goes into building railroads. First, you need the wood. Then you need to make the steel, right, for the rails, right? Well, of course, steel, you can't just dig up steel in the ground. You got to make it. So you got to take raw materials and make that too. So stimulating the economy just through railroad building in terms of just the track is pretty phenomenal to begin with. Then put on top of that railroad locomotives, railroad cars, then the companies you need to make to operate those railroads. We're talking about big-time economics expansion. The railroads were so important to the American economy that the federal government actually gets into the business of showering railroad businesses with land grants. The United States government gives millions of acres of land to the railroad companies. In Texas alone, the railroads are going to receive 32 million acres of land. Towns, cities, counties are going to give railroad companies land to stimulate growth in these areas. And in fact, pretty much if you don't have a railroad during this time period, you're not going to be much of a city. All right? Remember the movie Cars? Disney Pixar's Cars. Why is Radiator Springs such in the dumps? Because of the fact that the interstate highway bypassed them, right? Right. So it's kind of like that. If you don't have these types of things, if the railroad goes past your town, guess what? You're not a town anymore, or you're gonna, at worst, at best, you're gonna look like Radiator Springs. It's also during this time period that we're going to see gigantic corporations, what we call big business, all right? And it's the hero villain of the era, right? This is the time period we're talking about gigantic corporations. For example, in 1900, 2% of American businesses accounted for almost half of production in this country. 2% of American business, half of the production in this country in 1900. The trend, therefore, was for bigger and bigger corporations. Can big business do good things? Absolutely. They can offer cheaper prices. They can offer steady employment. But they can also do some bad things. We'll talk about that in another slide. Nevertheless, the hero/villain of this whole thing, the person that really starts us off, is going to be a man named John D. Rockefeller. Rockefeller sets up a refinery in Cleveland in 1863. And by the time you get to 1880, his company, Standard Oil of Ohio, is controlling 90% of the oil industry and the refining in this country. Rockefeller became the United States' first billionaire. We have a president of the United States in 2018 that's a billionaire. Rockefeller would make Donald Trump look like, well, no offense, you and I, right? Non-billionaires, right? In today's dollars, or at least in early 2000s dollars, Rockefeller's fortune was $180 billion. I don't know the exact number for Donald Trump, but it's not even close to that, right? Now, his monopoly will be broken up. His business arrangement will be broken up, but his company won't be too badly hit by this, right? As a matter of fact, there is a company today, a byproduct, a holdover of the Standard Oil of Ohio, known as ExxonMobil. It's a direct descendant. ExxonMobil in 2005 had $36.1 billion in profits, the largest net profits of any company in the world that year. But nevertheless, we're going to see in our next slide what industrialization can do to a country in general.